But where do you see this going? Where do you see the trend of digital media? And you could add on to that, particularly podcasts, YouTube, social media, whatever you want. Where do you see this going?
I think the big thing is carving through noise, right?
Mhm.
Because everything that we're talking about here is very noisy. Like you spend more time scrolling past content than anything else, right? I forget the number as to how many feet you of content you scroll past on a daily basis, but it's insane, like 2 football fields or something like that,
Oh
right?
my
Like
gosh.
it's crazy. But all you're trying to do, whether it's on your social media feeds, in your inbox,
Yeah.
all you're trying to get to is the things that matter most. One
Mhm.
thing that's inevitably going to happen is chatbots, AI conversations with people. But what people are really going to long for in the long run are those one-to-one connections with people. You know what I mean? You can't take that away, whether it's, an actual video that you're sending through email to a person, communicating with them, going to networking events and trade shows, shaking hands. I think people are always going to want that. They're always going to long for that. And AI can't shake a hand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's one of the things, but I think that's like with anything, people are going to become numb to certain things. The AI chatbots are going to be effective for a certain period of time, but what's that next level of personability? Is that even a word? Personability, but ability to relate to somebody on a personal basis and have that kind of a handshake and head nod and get to connect.
We're gonna need to look up if personability is a word, and I might be, but I understood what you meant, and I completely agree. I think it kind of goes back to that chat GPT thing you mentioned, which is like, hey, you could have a robot spit out an article, but is that article going to differentiate you from the next person that had the same robot spit out an article, right? So, like, two websites having pretty much the identical content, which is also bad for, say, SEO and so forth, is not beneficial towards anybody. It doesn't give you that character, that oomph, that differentiation, what makes you unique and qualities to your website. And I think agencies that are successful, including yours, it sounds like it adds that oomph or that value to that client's content. Um, let's also talk about PPC or Google AdWords. We haven't really brought it up as much. Maybe for some retargeting we did, but how when I was running my bigger business, Google AdWords was a big thing for us because it happened to be in the airline industry, and we were really trying to target clients that would fill out a quote form for a flight booking and so forth. How big is Google AdWords? Do you see this as a growing trend, or is this a too expensive of a marketing trend? Because you're really competing with not only giants in the industry but big budgets.
Yeah, I mean the market is the market, right? If there's
Yeah.
people out there who are going to pay it, then they can charge whatever they want for those clicks. I
Yep.
think depending on the level of intent of a person's ideal audience, right? So, if you're a dental practice, all of our dental clients are crushing it on Google because I mean they want dental practice in my area or
Yeah. Yeah.
dental practice near me. All those type of searches they want to be found for, and dental practices, because they make pretty big margins on their
They
patients,
do.
will pay say $5 a click.
They do. Yeah, they'll do an operation and they'll make a couple $1,000s on, and then they're happy for that client. So very good point actually for the audience. If you're in a specific niche area, such as a dental business, maybe some printer supplies or something that's local, cleaning service, like commercial cleaning companies, I could imagine those are very essential Google AdWords campaigns. If you're in a more broad industry, maybe the airline industry or maybe transportation that's competing with conglomerates like United or Cruises or whatever, then you're competing against some big budgets where you may not be able to outbid them, or your cost per click to obtain that client may be very high. But it's something, it sounds like, Jason, you still should investigate or really dive into and see if it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I would say, yeah, 100%. You're capturing that high intent traffic that has the pain point that you address and they're looking for your service. So absolutely. But I think you're missing a huge opportunity if you don't have a pixel on your website, a meta pixel to retarget that traffic on
Mhm.
Facebook and Instagram after they spent time on your website, right? That's a
Yep.
great opportunity. Let's say you're any business that would like high intent traffic, like for a collision center. Well, if
Yep.
somebody's Googling collision center in my area, and they're surfing around at different collision centers, and then immediately they hop into Instagram and they see a testimonial for your collision center. It's a great opportunity to get them back to your website, right?
We've covered quite a bit of topics of how important social media is, not only to the clients or people that are building a brand, but even to yourself to get more clients, to build that trust, for them to hire you to do what you're doing on just to get them in the door. And that's pretty creative. I totally respect it. I do have a few questions now that we're going to shift to as we wrap up here, as we're going to shift to management. Now, you've ran a successful company. It sounds like you mentioned over 12 employees. You've mentioned a team that's remote as well. Let's talk a little bit about management. How do you motivate your staff to make sure that they are taking each project with the way you would want them to carry it on and continue to provide that level of service? Some of them being remote, some of them coming in for meetings, etc.
Great question, because this has changed so much over the years. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, I think it's safe to say, we're finally in a position with our agency where we've got the best team we've ever had.
Yeah.
And they're just motivated to actually do a good job, and they take pride in their clients. And I think a lot of that stems from actually having relationships with your clients. So when you're embedded with clients and having regular calls with them on an ongoing basis, like, you have to hold yourself accountable. You don't want to show up to that, weekly meeting or monthly meeting, you know, being unprepared or
Yeah.
not performing. So essentially it's those calls that essentially keep you accountable and keep you working hard. You don't need to offer, bonuses necessarily or incentives. The
Yeah.
incentive is to do good work. And a lot of that stems from creating that culture internally. And it took us years to do that, you know?
Interesting. So accountability is a big word that you threw out there. Is really, you're not incentivizing them with necessarily money, but you're expecting a level of performance from them, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think we take good care of our employees. They have really good jobs where they have autonomy to do their jobs to their ability. They have flexible hours to get things done when they want to.
Mhm.
Our retention rate with employees is very high.
Okay.
And I think a lot of that allows them to go and just do their job, what they're hired to do, without the pressure of having a micromanager over their shoulders, ensuring they get it done.
Yeah.
We find employees that we've had in the past where we've had to micromanage just never work.
I
It's
see.
it's never
Just
happy. Not happy for
they
us, not happy for them. It doesn't work.
they just didn't have it, and you felt like you're frustrated trying to get them to get it, and it just wasn't in their blood, so to speak.
Even our team overseas, like,
Mhm.
these are people that have been with us for years, right? Like,
Mhm.
and that's one thing. If you've ever hired VAs before or somebody
Yep.
overseas, it's really tough to find a good one. And when you
Absolutely.
find a good one, you take care of them,
Yep.
right? So,
Yep.
we pay ours very well, and like I said, they're full-time employees, and they have the autonomy to do the job as they wish, as long as they're doing a good job and providing good results for our clients.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think hiring overseas is often a tale of you thinking you're getting a good deal because it's so much cheaper. You're avoiding the unemployment taxes and all the headaches that come along with hiring people domestically, the lawsuits potentially, and all these things. You're saving money, but if you don't hire that right person, you're just really wasting your time, in my opinion. And it's happened quite a few times here. Let me ask you a second follow-up question. How do you manage an employee that's just underperforming? What's your go-to approach for an underperforming employee?
Yeah.
And
So I think the key is it's funny. There's a couple ways we went about this over the years.
Mhm.
One is, if you find there's some red flags there, the good chance they're not going to go away, and you just kind of cut your losses when you can.
Okay.
We've done that before, right? It's like not waiting around, just make the decision quick and get it done with if you don't see it working long term. A lot of
Mhm.
times you'll give them chances and try to make it work, but a lot of times though, for those employees that have been with us longer, and you start seeing a decrease in performance, you really need to turn it back on yourself as an owner in the business and understand, have I put this person in the best position possible to succeed,
Mhm.
right? And do they have all the tools they need to succeed? Is there something that they need to perform their job better? It's having those open door conversations with employees to understand what they really need, right, to help them perform. And in some cases, we've realized that certain employees maybe weren't in the best position possible. Maybe their skill set is better served in a different department. So
Sure.
we've done that before too, because loyalty can be hard to find too. So when you have somebody that's loyal, maybe there's a better position at the company for them that serves their skill set better.
I agree. Yeah, you moved them. You didn't want to give up on them, but you realize they're, say, not a salesperson, you know, and but they're great at communicating. So you put them on the receptionist front line or something like this.
We moved there was one girl that was an employee with us, and she came in as a graphic designer, and she didn't last very long. So like I said a second ago, we let her go relatively quickly. And after we let her go, I said to Todd, Todd, let me see her resume. And I
Mm.
looked at it, and she went to school for film studies and videography and this and that. I'm like, wait a second here. We hired her for the wrong job because she was
Yeah,
really
yeah,
nice, really nice girl. And we ended up hiring her back as a videographer for a company. And she traveled with me to shows that I spoke at in Tel Aviv and
oh
Las
wow,
Vegas. And she just followed me around with the camera all the time. We did that for a whole year. And that was a really good position for her because she was really good at that.
that's cool. And she probably knows a little bit more about your rock band days than we've heard, based on the amount of time she spent with you. Uh, Quick question in regards to now your book. You mentioned you had a book, Drop the Mic Marketing. Give us a little bit about why that book's important, and let's get into the podcast. A couple questions there, and wrap up the interview.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, Drop the Mic marketing was written with he was co-written with a guy named Mike Almer, who's a pretty popular writer for the Toronto Maple Leafs hockey team here in
Oh, okay.
Canada, and he wrote for the National Post, and he ended up writing that book with me, which was an amazing experience. He basically sat me down with about 4 2-hour sessions, learned everything about my life, and then he came up with the idea for the story. And it was really about every single entrepreneur is essentially a rock star in their own industry, and then they need to leverage social media to get the word out there about their story, their journey, and their known, like, and trustability in their industry, right?
That's cool.
So that's kind of the gist of the book. You can check it out on Amazon. Drop the Mic Marketing.
And I assume the book gives you some tips, some feedback on how to improve your marketing strategies and so forth, correct? So if someone's kind of trying to dive into marketing, this is a good read.
Yeah, so definitely on Drop the Mic Marketing, we get into, specifics around how you can start using Facebook, Instagram advertising to promote yourself and your business. And we talk about some of the tactics that have worked for growing our own personal brands here at Merged Media, as well as our company. And over the years, through successful campaigns we've run, we just kind of show some of the examples.
Excellent. Maple Leafs, that's pretty cool. Um, let's ask about the podcast. The podcast is called the Merged Marketing Podcast. Uh, Tell me a little bit about it. How fun has it been to have your own podcast, to not only discuss marketing? I haven't checked it out. I'm being honest, but I will, and I want to know, what is it like running a podcast? How do you mix in all this time from managing all these campaigns, employees, and so forth, and still having a podcast?
Yeah, as a podcast. So the podcast, basically, I just need to show up because I have a team behind me that does all the production, all the editing, all that sort of stuff. We're creeping up to we're at episode 200.
Oh,
So
wow.
we've
Okay.
been consistent ever since February 2020, right?
Good for
So
you.
yeah, it's funny once you get to about 30, 40 episodes of the podcast, you no longer need to search for people because PR agencies reach out to you, giving
Yeah.
you all sorts of guests. Like we had the VP at Pepsi, we had we've some pretty well-known marketers, Dennis Yu, who's been on
Okay.
a podcast, Evan Carmichael. So we've had some pretty awesome guests over the years. And it's been a blast. Like I said, but I batch everything, right? All my podcast content is done same day of the week. Every month it's done same day. Every Wednesday is like podcast day for me. So it's like, and Tuesday, Wednesday, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I can get everything else done I need to get done.
That is so cool. It sounds like, well, first of all, 200 plus episodes. That's incredible. You're the second podcast guy that, or company or individual that's told me 30 podcasts is like that threshold. I've done over 300 YouTube videos, so I know the consistency involved. I personally like doing podcasts more and hearing individuals like yourself give a little bit more of substance because you add such a perspective. But that's pretty neat. I'm excited for that. And uh, personal life, how do you have kids? Do you have, you're married? So how do you manage all of this and kind of manage the podcast? I know you've said that you have people editing, but how do you manage all this? What advice would you give to someone?
Yeah, I have three kids, two daughters and a son, and they're between the ages of like 3 and 8.
Oh,
So it's busy, but I think the biggest way to balance that is disconnecting. Like my phone is not near me when I'm not working. You know what I mean? It's just like the phone's never near my bed. It's just I just keep it away from me, and I'm 100% there with my kids, right? Because
awesome.
if you're even getting notifications on your phone while you're trying to play a game of snakes and ladders, it's just like you might be in the game of snakes and ladders, but you're not really in the game of snakes and ladders because you're thinking about something else, right? So I think it's by managing that and just really separating the two. And it took time to figure that one out,
Yeah.
but it's just I'm so much more happier for it, right? Because I don't want to have any time not spent with my kids where I'm regretting it, right?